My name is Dia. Today I'm doing a week in review. So I'm trying really hard to get back into my normal routine now that all the summer travel is over. And all of our summer travel was very unexpected. Didn't think that we were going to be doing any, and then we got sent on a work trip, and we also ended up going to family reunion. Anyway, let's jump into some books so I can tell you what I have been reading and what I am currently reading and what might be coming up. All right, so first of all, I read Burning Roses, and this is a novella. This is a kind of twisted on its head fairy tale, flipped on its head. You are with Little Red Riding Hood, you are with Briar Rose, and there are all kinds of others that you meet along the way. I didn't really care for this, and I am trying to pinpoint why I didn't care for it, but I think that it's because instead of retelling a fairy tale or reimagining a fairy tale, it felt more like these characters were just kind of dealing with their own stuff, and like they had some pretty serious personal issues and they were dealing with those and seeking answers to those, rather than it being about, you know, the adventure, the quest, that kind of thing. Not that I would have minded that, but I don't think this was a big enough book for it. And I'm pretty sure that that is the reason why I didn't necessarily care for it. Then I read Who is Elmyr? Elmyr was an art forger, and that's not even his real name. He lived at a time when art was just kind of becoming popular again. The late 40s, early 50s, on into the 60s, 70s, and 80s when he was alive and doing this work. He was trained as an artist and showed more promise than anyone else in his art school. He was a little man, and he was pretty nondescript. Like, there was nothing that was outstanding about him that anybody would really notice or remember, and that really worked to his advantage. And what he initially wanted to do was sell his own art, but nobody wanted to buy it. And so he took pages, blank pages, out of old books that were from the time period that a painting would have occurred. And he made preliminary sketches with either charcoal or, you know, something else that was common to that time frame that he was taking the art inspiration from. And he made sketches on this paper and made it look old, signed it by whatever artist it was. He did a lot of Picasso, and he then took them to art dealers and would sell them as something that he found that he needed to know if it was a real Picasso or not. And then once the art dealers had decided that it was indeed an early sketch of a Picasso painting, that he would sell it to them for enough money to get by for a little while until he sold the next one. And of course, when you're doing something like that, you need to continue to challenge yourself. And he moved on from just drawings to paintings as ones that, you know, hadn't been seen before, or ones that had been seen but had disappeared. And he was really, really good at it, because he actually got caught. And when he got caught, he became very, very famous, and people actually wanted to begin buying his reproductions, his forgeries. So it was a very interesting book. I actually listened to it on audio. It was very, very short, very good. All right, then I read Bartleby the Scrivener, and this is by Herman Melville. And this was about a little old man who was a clerk. He got accused of doing some things. He was kind of blackballed. It was very sad. The story was a very sad story. His outcome in life was not a happy one. And yet I love Melville's writing. I love it. And this was no exception. I thought it was so good. I can't wait to read Billy Budd. I think that's my next Melville that's up on deck. I finished Fathers and Sons by Turgenev. This is for Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space and Beautiful Minutia. Their Patreons teamed up to do a collective read this month, and this is what was chosen, was Fathers and Sons, or Fathers and Children. My translation was by Constance Garnett and was an older translation, but it was still really good. It's about two sons and two different fathers. For most of the book, I was just irritated. There's a character in there that is on purpose very irritating and gets under your skin, and you're just thinking, how can these other people even give him the time of day? Do they not know? And the fact of the matter is they don't know. You, as the reader, are getting much more of an insight into this man than the people that he is putting on a face for. So it was really good overall. But like I said, just very hard to take. For most of the story was just really not fun to read. I would say probably the last quarter of the book is where I really started to have some hope. I then finished What You Want Is in the Library. This is translated from the Japanese. This is 4 or 5, I want to say 5 different people who each have their own short story, and they are interconnected. I enjoyed it overall because many of the characters in the book are crude. A couple of the characters in the book, I should say, are crude, and some of the language that they used really pulled me out of the stories. So I think that it could have benefited from the language changed to be less offensive, and then it would have been a really wonderful book. It starts out feeling a little depressing, and then you see a little hope, and then it gets depressing, and then you see a little hope. And so overall, I liked this book. It's not one that I am probably ever going to read again, but it's one that I actually am still thinking about, which means that I obviously liked it more than I initially thought. Then I read Botanical Folk Tales. These were very interesting, and as it says, they were all based around plants, and plants play a major part in these folk tales / fairy tales. And I liked the whole book. I thought that it was all really good. She kind of explains at the beginning of each one, gives you a little bit of the background, gives you a little bit of like a story of maybe why it was important, and then also tells you what part of Britain it comes from. I liked it. I liked it a lot. And then probably my favorite so far out of what I have finished was Oscar Wilde's De Profundis. And this was beautiful and heartbreaking and hopeful, but in a very broken kind of way. He is both seeking forgiveness and offering forgiveness, and it was just beautiful. I really, really liked it. Again, little short book. This was the letter that Oscar Wilde wrote in prison. He served a 3-year prison term. The reason for that was because engaging in gay relationships was against the law, and his lover's father turned him in, made sure that he served jail time in order to get his son away from him, basically. And this was Oscar Wilde's response during his time in prison. It doesn't sound like something I would like. It doesn't sound like something I would even normally read, but I have enjoyed so much of Oscar Wilde in the past that I thought, I'm just gonna try it. And honestly, it really made me stop and pause and think. The one that I have actually had an opening, an introduction from his grandson or great-grandson. Because it was such a scandal at the time, Oscar Wilde was still married, and he had 2 sons, and his wife actually left their ancestral home and moved far away, as far as she could, and took the boys with her and changed their last name. And it remains changed to this day. Anyway, I just really, really enjoyed it. And it was so much more than I thought it was going to be. And you can hear the hurt, and you can hear the confusion and the frustration, and you can hear the forgiveness, and he is even grateful for certain things in this letter. And he doesn't pull any punches. He is raw and honest. It was just lovely. So I would recommend that one. Editing Dia. I needed to let you guys know also that Carmilla from Hasty Books and I were reading The Sea by John Banville, and we DNF'd that. We thought that it was going to be a story about grief. If you read the back of the book, it's about this man who has recently lost his wife and has kind of taken a trip back to childhood areas to relive some of that childhood and kind of allow himself to heal after losing his wife. And it sounds wonderful, but it ended up being a little too much of this old white man remembering his sexual awakenings, and it was just too much for both Carmilla and I. We didn't like it at all, so we DNF'd that. Also wanted to let you know that I DNF'd When I Sing the Mountains Dance, And this was kind of, I picked this up on a whim. Beautiful purpley prose, very flowery, very poetical kind of writing. And that wouldn't in and of itself have bothered me, but it was very disjointed. There were all different kinds of narrators. One of them was a very young boy living in the Pyrenees Mountains after he had escaped something, and he's probably 6. He begins to describe people who are naked, women who are naked, himself naked. Then he sees a man who is naked and begins to describe that. So between the fact that I really wasn't following the story very well, that I wasn't connected to any of the characters because we were jumping around so much with who was narrating what, and then this, while I was reading The Sea, I just couldn't do it. I just could not do it. So I put that one away too. Just wanted to let you know. Currently right now I am reading Sword of Kaigen. I am reading this with Jack from Spreadbook Joy, Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, Gemma from Gemma Books, and this is our 3rd attempt at a book together, and I think this one is going to be a winner. We're about halfway through the book, and it has been marvelous. There is a strong thread of motherhood slash being a wife slash womanhood in this book, and it's my favorite part. Every single time something about those subjects comes up, it's my absolute favorite part of the book. It's just been so incredibly deep for a fantasy novel, and it is kind of, it's almost like a crossover novel because it's modern day, or maybe even a little bit in the future, and it is still feeling like a fantasy world because of the magic, and because one of the places in the book is kind of remote and removed from society and culture. So anyway, she has such a way, Huang has such a way of writing these characters, and you're attached to them so quickly. It's been a really good one. So good to read with these ladies. I don't know that I could have made it through. There's some trauma, there's some trigger warnings for this book, but it helped me get through it just reading it within this group of 4. So I am highly appreciative. I'm reading Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Fanu, and I don't know if I'm liking it. I don't think I am. It's bugging me. So actually, the lead character in this book, Carmilla, is reminding me a lot of the character in Fathers and Sons that I did not like. And so it's bringing up some feelings and some memories and things of Fathers and Sons, and I'm not liking that. But on top of that, it just feels icky. It's the only way I can put it. It's just very unsettling. And it's not because it's scary, and it's not because it's horrific. It's because it's icky. I happen to be reading that for Victoria from A Musical Bookworm. It's her Patreon pick for October, and it's a little teeny tiny novella. And so I am picking it up for Shorties September, basically. I've already read the September book, so I thought that I would go ahead and read that. I'm reading Blood of Assassins, which is book 2 by R.J. Barker in a trilogy. I cannot remember the name of the trilogy, but it is book 2. I read book 1 quite a while ago, but I've been waiting for my library to get a copy of the second and third book. They only had the first. I am not enjoying the second one as much as I did enjoy the first one, but that's often the case with a trilogy. And so I'm hopeful that this one ends strong, and then I want to read the third one. And then lastly, I'm currently in the middle of Lark Rise. This is by Flora Thompson, and I am reading this with Stephanie from Ms. Richards Reads. It is also absolutely beautiful. I'm enjoying my time in it. I really like the way that Flora Thompson writes. I believe that this was published originally in the late 30s, but I just read actually this morning that it is semi-autobiographical. So it's still a novel, but this is like her village, and that makes it even more endearing. And I've told Stephanie a few times, this reminds me so much of my grandparents' stories and things from when they were growing up, or stories that their parents told them that they then passed on to us. I just love it. I'm enjoying it so very much. And again, short. I think it's about 200 to 210 maybe pages. And there are 2 more books in the trilogy, and I think we're going to read another one next month and then another one the month after. And then what is on deck? I have Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. I might pick up that one. And then I also currently have Muriel Sparks, and it's called Aiding and Abetting. And I picked this up because of Shelley over at Shelley Swearingen. She recently read it and really enjoyed it, and so I thought that I would give it a try. I don't know if I have read a Muriel Sparks book before, so somebody's making coffee. So yes, that is what I have finished, what I am in the middle of, and what might be up next. And I think that is everything from me this week. I would love to know what you're reading. Are you doing Shorty September? I have Antony and Cleopatra coming from the library also, so that one might be up next. So I would love to know what you are participating in this month. Are you doing Shorty September? Are you doing Shake-tember? Are you doing any of the others? I also, I forgot about this. I also have a book called Dream Days by Kenneth Graham that is coming from the library. It's short also, it's short stories. And it is for Margaret Pinard's Scott-tember. So I will be doing that one, maybe, if it gets here this next week. So, all right. I don't think there's anything else to add. I will talk to all of you again very, very soon. Please like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you around. Bye, everybody.